It's like, when that morning for me is like, it's not by you. It's like morning is like 10 a.m. by me. So it doesn't interfere with my schedule, or 10:30 actually. So it allows me to go and dive in, in the morning. And then after that, it's pretty smooth. It was a place I was actually learning at, and they just asked me. One of the guys heard the podcast. He was like, "Wow, this is hot." And then so he told the Rosh Hashiva about it, and he was like, "Yeah." And I came and gave a shir on Sunday, and it went very well. Great response.
Question.
And so down there, and it's a really good thing because it's kind of like it's like it's like it's positive because I really like the guys there a lot. Like they're like mostly like older guys, like above the age of 50. So it's a very like it's an older crowd, but like still like very young and optimistic. They're not like locked in, but they're very knowledgeable guys. But there's a very like youthful spirit there. And the Rosh Hashiva is like a beyond amazing person. And it's good. I mean, and it gives me like I've taught a lot of places, but I haven't really taught, you know, since I teach, I have my own thing, my own yeshiva, but I haven't taught in a mainstream context since even almost like before, I would say like before, like around like when I first got married, type of thing. I was teaching at Rabbi Pinchas's shul, so his yeshiva, so that's the thing. But this is like very mainstream, very respected. So it's a good. It's part of that like process of like I feel like getting married. You know what I mean? And I don't know why one has to do with the other exactly, but it's just like you think about like Yosef Asadik, leaving the dungeon, leaving the jail, and the Torah talks about like before he went, like he went and he put on new clothes, he got a haircut before he goes to Paro, right? And Paro could be understood as like the ultimate challenge and the ultimate opportunity. And so you go through that process in life sometimes where it's like you're recreating yourself, you're this, I was having a conversation with a guy earlier today on one of these apps where they have like was it I don't know if it's TikTok, like Clubhouse, something like this. He was saying like, why are you always talking to us? Because I generally find people that disagree with everything that I think, and I really talk out ideas and concepts with them. And and he was just saying like, you should have a podcast and this and that. And I was like, bro, I got a podcast. It's mostly all tourist stuff. But I was telling him like how it takes time to really formulate your ideas, life in general. Like it just takes time to, like if, like my mom says all the time, like K through 12 was, in terms of school, like it's all about, what other people said, other people's ideas. And, it just takes time to get to that place of like your words, your ideas. And you see it a lot like in like music artists. You hear music artists say that like it took me so long to get in touch with like my voice, my words, and we live in a society that's so focused on everybody else's thoughts and what everybody else's thinks and that whole thing. And to get in touch with your voice and your ideas, is a big concept. And I think it's even more, I don't know, it's really everything's equal, but I also take into account like, my background, my heritage being African American and and like just that idea of like I mean we've had moments of our voice, like some of our voice came out in song and dance. Sometimes our voice came out like when we were fighting for equality and justice, but I also think that there's like our voice, like what is our voice and wisdom? I know wisdom came out were expressions of the art, expressions of our discourse, but just wisdom, right? And what does it mean to have wisdom? And we have like grandparents, right? Big Daddy, Big Mom. We always had this like culture, like older people had wisdom, right? And I mean, up until like this last generation, having respect for older people was like a thing, right? And so, anyways, it's just dealing with that. So, anyways, but it's interesting. I went to a Shabbos meal with like very, very with the Rosh Hashiva and his wife. It was just us three. It was like a private dinner, just us. It was like before I started teaching, and I was, we were just talking about some, it was just Torah back and forth. His wife's like super high level, like Rebbitzin, 40 something plus years, in the old city type of thing. And and I started to talk about some of the ideas, from you know Chalak Pirki, our Sefer, and it was just mind blowing, for her, right, and her husband, like just the concepts, and how clear the concept, because everyone knows Samsun, they know this, they know these ideas, construct, but the way Ramchal is teaching us is so incredibly clear, and there's people, that are like Mamash Hamikachim, and they're blown away by it. And even sometimes, even in the place where I'm teaching at now in the morning, like even by them, I see a little idea here and there, and it's blowing, like it's unbelievable, like the things that I'm saying, these types of things, and it's all the same that we're saying. It's just giving appreciation that Hashem has given us to merit, to learn together, and in this level of Torah, because now it's like natural for us, because we've been rolling like that almost from day one, right? Like just different, I mean, we did a lot of Musa, a lot of stuff, we learned a lot of Safari, right? But it's just saying that we're operating at a very, very clear level. And even today, like a guy, I was in share, the guy was talking about missed opportunities, and in this, and it's things he regrets. And the thing is, it's we've learned, in the safer, that the whole thing is going through the deficiencies to get to perfection, right? That's the whole thing. And so we think about life and like missed opportunities and that, it's like it doesn't exist, because if it was the right opportunity, it would have manifest. And if you're saying, oh well, like saying in the case of like marriage, right? Some people say like, oh well, if you're at a higher madrega, but it's still like there's no losing in this game, right? I mean, there's pain, there's suffering, um there's pain, there's suffering, there's challenges, but it's those things, you know what I mean? And but it's just saying, it's just a thing. So like even like in this week's Torah portion, like the Shemos, the book of Shemos, right? This whole book of Exodus, the book of Shemos is the book of names. It's a big concept, because this is like it's really expressing the concept of the Ramchal, like Badafka, like it's like, they go through deficiency, right? They go into Mitzrayim. What is Mitzrayim? It's a limited, it's a very limited perspective, right? It's a very limited perspective. Like the shorish of the word Mitzrayim, is connected to the idea of limitation. And it's like now, but like we can learn it in a different way, right? Because we understand Simsun, right? And we understand Simsun, and we understand this idea of 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 the world of Simsun, and how the lights that go through Simsun, they it's like they develop, or they express this component of opposite, right? Which is opposite of the Kedusha, the opposite of Am Israel, right? That opposite component, like that's in the frame of 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 the other side. And now we're watching Am Israel go into Egypt. Like, what are we reading? Are we reading about them going into Egypt, or are we reading about the light from the Ein Sof going into the world of Simsun? And out of the Simsun, there's an aspect of the other side, and even that other side, is a pathway to the concept of complete darkness, which is evil, which is the Mitzrayim. I mean, it's right there. We could read it as a story, the Jews going to Egypt. Okay, very nice. Every kid, Jewish day school's reading that story, right? And the plagues and this and this whole thing. Okay, but what are we hearing? All these things, if everything's light, everything that we're reading about in the book of Shemos. Okay, I'm gonna do a podcast on. Okay, I got it. I got it. We're in a different sugya. We're in the wrong call. But I just want, just to express this point, which I'm sure you already thought of. It's just this idea of these mechanisms of creation is what the Torah is expressing. Right, we go into this place of deficiency. We go where everything seems separate. We seem so far away from Hashem. We're going through difficulty, struggling. All these things are happening, and then what's the end product? The end product is that we go through so much difficulty, so much toiling. We get to this point of being heroic and courageous, and we decide to move out of a space and go somewhere for the sake of positivity. And that was the building block of us going into what? The world of perfection. What's the world of perfection? Man. And ultimately, the highest level of perfection is Matan Torah. So the Simsun has an endpoint, right? It has an endpoint. Where I mean, I can't wait to see how Ramchal builds us up in that point. But the main thing, the main idea, is to be able to see that how the Torah is describing the endless world to the finite world, the light, the straight light of the Kav that is expressed through Israel, in the 10 Sfirot of the Klipa Noga, of the other side. And Ram Kosh would explain us how these things develop. How did they get there? Because Hashem said so. Why is it important to see that? So we don't waste our time with reading the Book of Shemos. Well, why did God create Egypt? Why did Egypt work just fine? Because the physical world is an expression of the spiritual world. When a guy gets married, we talked about this before, right? But this is the ultimate vort off of this. When a guy gets married, and I'm honestly, like, I'm sure other people said it, and maybe even Ramchal said it indirectly, and I just like didn't fully get it, and then I thought about it, and I didn't really connect it to Ramchal. So maybe I don't know where I got the idea from, but it's just saying, like, it's so clear that the concept of marriage is the relationship between the Ein Sof and the Simsum. Why? Because the Ein Sof is endless light, endless potential. But marriage is the subjugation of that endless potential into a finite direction. So a guy who has ability to, say per se, impregnate as many girls as he physically sees, right? He has ability to do that. Now, the thing is, he has ability to do that. At the same time, Hashem says you got to get married. Hashem says you should be with, you know, one woman. Some cultures, allow for more, right? But in our culture, it's one woman. And in that subjugation to that one woman is a big concept, right? Because man's natural nature is to be free, to help be alone, to go out and hunt, and come back home and to go and hunt again the next day for something new. So that idea is what we're watching, right? And so when we it's just like when we understand it in that way, when we understand that we're just looking at these worlds whether it's the world of Igulim, the circular component of the world of Yashar, meaning higher or lower, horizontal. We got to be aware of it. So anyway, so let's go into Sefer. Bro, that morning hits different when you got the classes in the morning. You know, and then you're on the Temple Mount, you're davening this, bro. It's like a new level of strength. Also, we're in this process of Shovavim, right? Which is like the 7 weeks before Pesach. So we'll talk about it. Not today so much, but something to have in mind. It's a unique time for study, and a lot of people study Pirkei Avot. Maybe we do Pirkei Avot. I don't know. Which is good. Alrighty. Okay. All right. So this is Gimel. I think we're almost at the end. Bro, 60 pieces, bro. This is like this chapter 30 was no joke. Ramchal, it seems like even in Mishilat Yesharim, like it'll be some chapters, it'll just be like he just goes off, like he just will not hold back and just like, hey, we got to get this out for you to understand this. Okay, so where are we at, right? So this is the last part on the last chapter. Vehia Hanikarat, um, Sitra Akra, right? This is called the Sitra Akra. This is the name of the opposite ram, right? We're just talking about it. It is justly called the other side as much as it is literally the opposite of the first extension we discussed. Thus, the creation was made with both intentions that we should be a realm of existence and a realm of destruction, and we call them two sides. Okay, so we were just talking about that, and so just it's an amazing concept that it's an amazing concept that we're going into this discussion going into the book of Shemos, because the whole book of Shemos is this, like everything, every difficulty, the concept of the Pharaoh, the concept of the other Egyptians, the concept of the subjugation, the slavery, all this was a byproduct of this one side of creation, which is pure light, which is Am Israel, and the other side, which is the expression of the Simpson, right? The expression of this, I mean, the expression of the attribute of the Simpson that creates this realm, which is the opposite of the original light of the Ein Sof. So we're like in the middle of that conversation right now. Like, so when we're reading that whole thing, okay, it says Ha Seder Rishon She Kabel She Haor Hani Ahani Atzel Ve'ahinu Ki Tikolot. Okay, so he says the first order. All right, so this is chapter 3. Drum roll. He said the first order assumed by the emanating light. What does that mean? As we have already discussed, the residue exists initially only as the first root of all that would be created afterwards. Standing as a general whole, waiting to divide into its particulars. Indeed, many powers are found there, and thus the Ari stated that this emanation contains both contains worlds with and without end. Okay. Okay, so the residue exists initially only as the first part, or only as the first root of all that would be created afterwards. Ah, it's interesting. Standing as a general whole, waiting to divide into its particulars. Indeed, many powers are found there, and thus the Ari stated that this emanation contains both worlds without end. So the way I would describe this is like we talked about the idea of the dust on the bottom of the feet, right? And this, the supernal creation of man, the supernal creation of reality, has the 10 spheroids, and we understand the 10 spheroids could be expressed to a body, right? The head, Keter the arms, Hesed Gavur, chest Tiferet, the legs, Hod, Netzach and Hod, reproduction organs, Yesod, feet, Malchut, right? So we have that. It's like a thing. But on the bottom of the feet, there's dust, right? You see it on the Temple Mount. People walking, they got that without their shoes on and socks. It's dust. What's the significance of that? The significance is that the reality that we live in, if everything has a 10 spheroid, everything has an endless reality, an endless existence. If everyone had that, then if everyone had that measurement of time and space to the 10 spheroid, right? So he's saying, like here, the residue or the dust on the bottom of the feet could be likened to the residue of the world that we live in, right? Meaning that the residue is a bridge between both sides, right? The residue is a bridge. The dust on the feet is a bridge to the actual feet and the rest of the holy body, right? Which we understand is the Shekhinah and the 10 spheroid, the whole thing. But on the other side of the residue is the beginning of, say, more darkness, more separation, right? And so he's saying that he's making a point about this residue, being this idea. And then what are we trying to understand? This idea of the Klipa Noga. Okay. Yeah. Okay, where we at? Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry. So he says the intention that powers to bestow should gain sway until every flaw is returned to the repaired state. Were we just reading this or am I just tripping? I don't know what happened. I don't know. Anyways, just keep going. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, we were just reading. Okay. This is the whole purpose of the line that governs the residue, as explained earlier, right? That the true essence of God's unity will be known. The governmental order itself ensures that this is how everything will end. The total rectification, this is because of the superiority of good over evil. For good is primal, as where evil is a new creation. So we established that before, right? The goodness of the world is coming from the Ein Sof. The dark side is a manifestation, just like physicality, out of the limitation of the Simsun. This is because of the superiority of good over evil, and for good is primordial, and evil is a new creation. The good is from the from the one and only Hashem, while evil is the other side, the angel of death, a created slave. This is why, given that there is a war between the holy side and the other side, good against evil. Good must necessarily be virtuous, but its victory will come about only because of the intrinsic superiority of good over evil. Okay, love conquers all, right? Though this the truth of God's unity will be known, because only by virtue of there being only one domain will everything eventually be rectified. Okay. So the whole point is complete is completion, is perfection, is tikkunim, right? So he's going off on that point. And so he says for now, for we see how the supreme will has allowed all the different kinds of damages found in the world to exist. And afterwards, at the end of everything, we know that his unity will be aroused and will be rectified everything, as it says in Zechariah. And I will remove the sins of that land on one day. So it's kind of an interesting idea, right? Like you're going through something with people struggling a couple weeks ago physically. They should continue to be healthy, but now they're better. So you, probably different than most people, have an understand of this idea, whatever. I can't even say it, bro. Gonzalvatova, whatever. We understand what that means in a new way, right? Because it doesn't just mean like, oh, I just have high hopes and I'm hoping for the best. It's like, no, this is how creation works. There'll be moments of deficiency. There'll be moments where things don't seem like they're going right. There'll be moments where it doesn't seem like things are going to work out. And it's just not true, right? Vehare mi mida yikush. So he says the question could immediately be asked: does the Holy One, blessed be He, want to rectify everything through man's free will or through His own power? If you say He wants to rectify everything through man's free will, how could it be that from the beginning He tells us the end? Ah, it says in Isaiah. Surely he knows the future, and since he knows that in the end they will need him, should it not be rectified? Should should did he have should he not have rectified everything from the very outset? He's asking a fair question. If Hashem's saying everything's going to be good at the end, everything's going to be perfected. Okay, shkoyak. Very nice. Everything's going to be perfected. So what do we need to go through this whole process of life? Surely he knows the future, and since he knows that at the end we would need him, should he not have rectified everything from the outset? Anain ki ratse sitra akra basibihi le hotsia ma'alev habariot. She says the point is that the Ein Sof, blessed be He, wanted to remove from the hearts of His creature the mistake of believing that there were two dominions, one of which brings good and the other one which is evil. Accordingly, He first laid down the Sphirot, in which He does not use His unity and perfection or and perfected power. Right, he removed from the hearts of his creature the mistake of believing. So that seems like this is the big challenge, right? That there's two worlds. Well, we just explained that there's two worlds. No, but it's not two worlds. It's just the other world that we see, the Sitra Akra, is a byproduct of this aspect of reality we're living in. But it's not a world into itself. Only good is the dominant force. First, he says, accordingly, first he laid out this world in which he does not use his unity and perfected power. On the contrary, the power of the Sphirot is like the power of a strong man who submits himself to a test against a rival power, the other side, which the strong man himself puts in possession of power that is contrary to his own. So I guess you could look at it like maybe a metaphor for this, like to remember, is like when we work out with weights, right? We go into the gym and we're dealing with a force different from us, right? Like it's, everything's like totally heavy and there's gravity pull and does not have the ability to ascend on whatsoever, which are weights, right? They just go straight to the bottom. So by going against that force, we become stronger. We become more fit. We become healthier. So he's comparing this idea of a strong man going against the complete opposite force, which is working out. And I'm using this example to understand that, like the other side, which is strong man himself puts him in possession of a power, is contrary to his own. So I think it makes sense. It says, "Ukavor ein ech kol mini kocha she olam mashehu." Ooh, ooh, we're almost finished. God has already shown how all kinds of power in the world, as long as they remain in the category of power, along alone without having the ultimate control, cannot conquer the other side. On the contrary, is reading again. He says, God has already shown how all kinds of power in the world, as long as they remain in the category of power alone, without having ultimate control, cannot conquer the other side. On the contrary, the challenge of the other side is so great that it is impossible to escape from it without recognizing God's unity. Wow. So he says that's the key to get away from chaos. Person has chaos in their life. Ramchal is saying the way that we get rid of chaos in our life, and the reason why it's there to begin with, is to see God's unity. However, when his unity is aroused and he asserts his ultimate control, it will immediately become apparent that there is no place whatsoever for the other side. That's when God's unity is complete. And he says, and from this, we will understand ultimately the other side does not possess external power in any way. Mm. It's like you think about the vampire concept, right? Like the vampire only has power if you invite it into your house. The way that the myths, the story of the fables of the vampire, like you only give it only has power if you invite it in. And so he says, however, when his unity is aroused, he asserts his ultimate control. It will ultimately become apparent that there is no place uh, whatsoever for the other side. From this, we will understand immediately that the other side does not possess internal power in any way, and we will see God control and unity. So he says, why? Let's close out the chapter. Because the other side contains every other power except for this. But in order to be a domain, it would have complete control. The other side, therefore, the other side is therefore not a domain, but a subject slave possessing no power except what is given to it. While the power it is given is great, it does not have any control at all. For there is only one controlling master, blessed be he, and blessed be he named forever, and to be the whatever. So I just read again. He says, while the power is given is great, it does not have any control at all. So even the dark side doesn't have control. It's just like it only exists because we keep feeding it. We keep feeding the Yitzhak Hara, and therefore it has a power, but it's not a world. It's like a really bad smell that just keeps growing based off your actions. And while the power is given is great, it does not have any control at all. For there is only one controlling master, blessed be he, in his name, in his name be forever and ever. So I don't want to go further, just because the elder, if we jump into Adam Kadmon, like, you know. Anyways, but I do want to talk it out. Hold on 1 second. All right, let's what are some of your reflections on this? We just first of all, Mezotov, we just finished chapter 30, which was like a massive work. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it took us like close to a month to get through this, but um and where we started at and where we finished, that's one of the beauties of learning Torah is like you're not the same person, when you're really inside and you learn. It's like I'm not the same person when we start chapter 30. Dafka, we could almost do a see him, like almost, but whatever. So, anyways, Ochino, thoughts, reflections.
Baruch Hashem. We've definitely told through this chapter. It's been long chapter. I think we've been here, yeah, definitely a month. But Baruch Hashem. It's really powerful to think about how the Sitra Akra has power but no control. It has no sovereignty. So the reason why it can disappear is because it never had control to begin with. It never had a full grasp. It wasn't a competing power. It was only a mechanism used to bring about redemption. So without the Sitra Aqua, without the resistance, there is no redemption. It's a component of it. So, the Ram call is really giving us the ability to settle our mind, to conduct ourselves appropriately in the midst of darkness, understanding what darkness is, understanding what resistance is, understanding what the other side, what its capacity is, but never giving it power, never giving it sovereignty. And that's where, we crown the slave. We give the slave power when we feed it consistently by believing that it has its own independent power. But in reality, it's only a mechanism used to bring about redemption. The concealment is a part of the redemption. So without concealment, there is no possible freedom from that. You have to have one to have the other. So, we could say the question, why did Hashem, like you said earlier in the year, why did Hashem create Mitzrayim? Like, what's the point of it? But without Mitzrayim, you don't have the forging of Bnei Israel. You don't have those sparks, those fragmented sparks now becoming back unified. And they were never fragmented to begin with. So you elevate beyond the illusion, you start to see that there is no fragmentation at all. If you believe there's fragmentation, that's a difficult, thing to contend with. But when you realize that everything is one, now you can actually appreciate the separation. You can appreciate, like Yosef told his brothers, Hashem sent me here. Without Hashem sending me here, a whole people would not be, wouldn't be able to exist. Hashem did this. It's not you. It's all a part of his plan. And when we look at the end of Vayechi, you see that it ends with Yosef Hazadeh seem to be in a coffin in complete concealment. He's in Mizraim. He's deep in Mizraim. He's buried in Mizraim. But he tells his brothers to bring up my essence, bring up my bones. And the Torah, Kazal says that he's telling them to bring his essence out of Mizraim. And then when we get to Shemos, it's names. So you go from concealment to revealment. And I feel like tying that in, that the Ram call is bringing that this powerful teaching to the forefront of our minds to understand that concealment is the mechanism for revealment. So that's what I got from it. Hey, Rob, you saying something? I can't hear you.
Yeah, no, just thinking about it. Okay, good. No, just thinking about what you're saying. It's a journey, it's just a journey, and we just got to keep pushing it. You know what I mean? But the key thing is allowing the blessings that come to us, and just being a vessel. And a lot of times, we go through processes of conflict, of darkness, of concealment, and we do things, we may say things, we may think things that may put a blockage, a klipa, on that blessing manifest. And so, let's refine ourselves, in our Torah and all these things, and just be able to, just to be able to, just receive greatness, greatness beyond imagination.